So most people believe that success begins with talent. We celebrate the gifted, the fast learners, the naturally confident. But when we look closely at the people who build lasting impact, we notice something far more important than talent. We notice consistency. Because talent might open the door, but consistency is what keeps it open. Take someone like Warren Buffett. He didn't become successful because of one brilliant decision. His success came from decades of disciplined, consistent thinking. He followed the same principles year after year. Even when the world around him was chasing shortcuts, his strength was not speed, it was patience. And patience is simply consistency over time. Yet consistency is not exciting. It doesn't make headlines, it doesn't feel powerful in the moment. But consistency builds trust, and trust is the foundation of leadership. People don't follow leaders because they are impressive once. They follow leaders because they are reliable always. Think about someone like Nelson Mandela. His leadership wasn't built in moments of applause. It was built during years of silent struggle and discipline. He stayed consistent to his values, even when it cost him everything. That consistency gave his leadership moral authority. And moral authority is stronger than any title. That consistency begins with knowing your why. When people don't know why they are doing something, they rely on motivation, and motivation fades. But when the why is clear, consistency becomes a natural response. It's no longer about how you feel, it's about who you choose to be. Consider someone like Apple's early leadership culture. Steve Jobs didn't just demand innovation, he consistently reinforced a belief system: simplicity, excellence, purpose. Over time, that consistency shaped behavior, decisions, and identity. Culture is not built by vision statements. It's built by consistent actions repeated daily. Many people confuse consistency with repetition. They think it means doing the same thing blindly. But real consistency is about values, not routines. It's about consistently choosing integrity over convenience, long-term thinking over short-term comfort, and responsibility over recognition. So athletes understand this better than anyone. The most successful athletes are not the ones who train hardest once. They are the ones who train reasonably every day. They rely on systems to show up. They rely on systems, and leadership works the same way. Systems protect us when emotions fail. That consistency also builds confidence, but not the loud kind. It builds quiet confidence, the kind that comes from knowing you've done the work, the kind that doesn't need approval. People who are consistent don't panic under pressure because they trust their process. In organizations, inconsistency destroys morale faster than failure. Teams can handle mistakes. What they can't handle is unpredictability. When leaders are consistent in their values and expectations, people feel safe. And safety is what allows people to perform at their best. The challenge is that consistency requires humility. It requires accepting slow progress. It requires resisting comparison. And it requires showing up even when no one is watching. That's why so few people commit to it. But that's also why it works. If you want to lead better, don't ask yourself how to be more talented. Ask yourself how to be more consistent. Consistent in listening, consistent in learning, consistent in doing the right thing even when it's inconvenient. We often grow up believing that leadership belongs to the most talented people in the room, the smartest voice, the fastest thinker, the most confident speaker. But when we step back and observe leaders who truly last, who earn trust over decades rather than moments, we begin to see a very different story. Leadership is rarely built on talent alone. It is built on consistency, the ability to show up with the same values, the same standards, and the same commitment day after day. Talent can create attention, but consistency creates belief. People may admire talent, but they trust consistency. And trust is the currency of leadership. Without it, titles mean nothing. With it, even ordinary people can create extraordinary impact. To look at someone like Warren Buffett, he never claimed to be the most brilliant investor in the room. What set him apart was not intelligence, but discipline and consistency of thinking. He followed a small set of principles for decades and refused to abandon them, even when trends tempted others. His leadership, both in business and in life, came from staying consistent to his beliefs when it was unpopular to do so. That consistency is also what turns values into action. Many people talk about integrity, respect, and responsibility. Very few practice them consistently. And people notice when a leader treats others with fairness only when it's convenient, credibility erodes. But when a leader applies the same values under pressure, trust grows stronger. Consistency tells people that what you believe is not negotiable. Consider Nelson Mandela. His leadership was not defined by a single speech or a moment of victory. It was defined by years of disciplined consistency to a principle of reconciliation and dignity. Even when he had every reason to act with anger, he chose restraint. That consistency gave his leadership moral weight. People didn't follow him because he was powerful. They followed him because he was predictable in his values. Tech consistency also protects us during uncertainty. Motivation often disappears when results are slow or feedback is negative. But consistency allows progress to continue even when confidence is shaken. Successful people understand this deeply. They don't wait to feel ready. They commit to the process. Athletes train even when they are tired. Writers write even when inspiration is absent. Leaders lead even when decisions are uncomfortable. In organizations, inconsistency is one of the fastest ways to destroy culture. When leaders change standards based on mood or pressure, people lose clarity. And without clarity, people lose trust. But when expectations are consistent, people feel safe. And safety creates performance. This is why the strongest cultures are not built by charisma, but by repeated behaviors that reinforce shared beliefs. Tech consistency also shapes identity. Every small action repeated over time becomes evidence of who we are. When leaders consistently listen, people feel heard. When leaders consistently learn, teams grow. When leaders consistently admit mistakes, trust deepens. Leadership is not a position we achieve, it is a pattern we practice. The challenge with consistency is that it requires patience. It asks us to trade excitement for endurance. It asks us to value progress over recognition. And it asks us to remain committed even when no one is watching. That is why it is rare. But that rarity is exactly what makes it powerful. If we want to build leadership that lasts, we must stop asking how to be more impressive and start asking how to be more consistent. Consistent in our values, consistent in our actions, consistent in the way we treat people, especially when it's difficult, because in the end, leadership is not measured by how brightly we shine in one moment, but by how steadily we show up over time. Leadership is not about how impressive you are on your best day. It's about how predictable you are on your worst day. Talent may impress people once, but consistency is what makes people feel safe following you. When leaders act the same way regardless of pressure, mood, or situation, people begin to trust them. To think about leaders you admire in your own life, they are not perfect, but they are reliable. They listen every time, they show up every time, they stand by their values every time. That repetition creates trust. And trust is the foundation of leadership. Talented people can shine in moments. Consistent people carry others over time. That's why consistency matters more. It turns belief into behavior and behavior into credibility. Talent is something you have. Consistency is something you practice. And what you practice repeatedly becomes who you are. So successful people don't rely on motivation to act. They rely on habits aligned with their values. An athlete doesn't become great because of one intense training session. A leader doesn't become respected because of one strong decision. They become great because they keep showing up even when no one is watching. Over time, consistency builds quiet confidence. You stop needing validation because you trust your process. You stop waiting to feel ready because you've proven to yourself that you can keep going. This is how consistency transforms effort into identity. You don't just act like a leader, you become one. A talent may start the journey, but consistency is what finishes it.